The 2023 UNEP Adaptation Gap Report released recently raises concern about lack of funds. When unprepared, the nations are exposed to inadequate planning and investment in climate adaptation. It is causing development in field to stall out rather than pick up speed in order to keep up with the growing effects of climate change. The difference between actually implemented adaptation and a societally set goal determines, largely by preference related to tolerated climate change impacts and reflecting resource limitations and competing priorities, is called the adaptation gap. The adaptation finance gap has grown despite the obvious indicators of escalating climate risks and impacts worldwide. The Paris Agreement's temperature and adaptation targets cannot be met with pitifully inadequate amount of current climate action. Even if the objectives of the Paris Agreement are met, there will still be a residue climate hazards or risk that exist even after significant adaptation measures. Consequently, residual climate risk will unavoidably result in losses and damage that are both non-economical and financial in nature. While efforts to adapt the growing effects of climate change should be intensified, they are instead slowing down overall. The amount of public, international and bilateral adaptation funding transfers to the developing nations fell by 15% in 2021. The current estimate of the adaptation financial gap is $194 to $366 billion a year due to the expanding need of adaptation finance and the failing flows. Ambitious adaptation can improve resilience, which is crucial for underdeveloped nations and marginalized population, especially women. Research shows that for every billion spent on adaptation to prevent coastal flooding, economic impacts are reduced by $14 billion. An annual investment of $16 billion in agriculture might avert the starvation or chronic hunger over 78 million people due to the effects of climate change. The report lists 7 strategies for raising funding, including money from the commercial, public and foreign sectors as well as domestic spending. Remittance, expanding and customized finance for small and medium-sized enterprise redirect financial flows towards low carbon and climate resilient developing pathways. And the Bridgetown Initiative proposed reform of the global finance architecture and some other options. The current gap between what is required and what is available and what is promised in terms of international public finance and adaptation is distressing. With an extensively interconnected and interdependent global economy, the developed world really needs to invest in adaptation. Developing countries, often facing the hardest hit by climate change, are receiving only a fraction of the funds required for effective adaptation measures. The shortfall in funding poses a severe challenge for vulnerable countries facing impact of climate change, demanding immediate attention from global leaders and action at the grassroots level.